Let's do this. And we are off and running.
Yeah, I see the red light.
I see the red light. That means it's all good.
Cool.
Till it goes beep, 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 beep.
Yeah, let me try to find
Why does it sound like there's so much echo on this mic? Yo, yo, yo. What episode is this? 71, right 70?
Hold on, brother. 76. Last time we shot was October 18th. Well, so it's been over a month.
Yeah, that's our new trend line,
all right,
unfortunately.
You want to kick us off, or are we going?
No. I mean, welcome. Why is there, like, this wicked echo in this?
You have to turn the gain down on one of them, probably.
Anyway, here we are, starting off our podcast with all kinds of technical glitches.
I don't know if it's yours or not.
I don't know either. All right, anyway.
All right. Episode 76.
And
welcome
I'm not
back.
editing it, so it's straight to the camera. So
all right,
we're
great.
off and running.
So it's been over a month.
So last time we did it was pre-election.
Man,
there was a lot of fun.
There was a lot going on since then. But we have a special guest in the building.
We do.
With little to no introduction needed. Well, I'll give him an introduction anyway. We have Alex Lantz in the building.
That's right.
All I know is this dude rolled up in a nice ride, so I'm impressed.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, yeah, got the M8 out there.
Yep.
How long you had that for?
Since April.
How you like it?
So did you buy it new?
No, 2020.
Because, I mean, I would imagine they're all on allocation, right? So you'd have to know somebody to get it new.
Yeah, production is ending early 2025. So that's a 2020 first year production car.
Right, okay.
So it's about four and a half years old.
That's cool. Wait, so 2025 is the last year they're doing them?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, they're discontinuing that
the M8
chassis, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, with the 4.4 V8.
Got you. Okay, cool.
Going electric or
hybrid? Yeah. So they introduced a new M5, but not a two-door for that. So, yeah.
Interesting.
It'll be interesting to see if they end up doing an 8 Series M division car.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine.
They had the new XM, right? Which kind of, I feel like it didn't fall flat, but I feel like they didn't sell as many as they were expecting, because they're like that's like the upper echelon of cars.
Well, isn't the XM just M bits and parts? It's not a real M car, right? It's like
BMW
is kind of confusing, but if it's not straight M, it's just got M like badging and some of the ground effects or whatever it might be. It's not an M car.
Is the XM strictly M? Do you know?
I'm not sure if it was developed and engineered and whatnot by the M division, but there's the XM and then the XM Red Label, where the Red Label is like 1,000
fancy
horsepower.
Leather.
Yeah, it's upgraded powertrain. It's still the V8 hybrid, so there's a lot more power. There's electric motors in it, but it came at like a starting MSRP of like $155, I believe.
Yeah.
So at that point, that's supercar money. So.
Yeah, you're better out. Like you were talking about McLaren or whatever.
Right.
You're getting into that ballpark.
Yeah.
Alex was always an interesting guy to talk to for a number of reasons. I mean, you mentioned the car and everything like that, and I think, like you mentioned, Joe, with the election kind of passing by, and you're starting to see this giant wave of cryptocurrency. I feel like that's kind of centric around the conversation, a little bit of what we're going to be talking about, or good majority of it. I don't know if we want to get into the election part first, or if we want to get into more of the crypto stuff first, because you have a pretty interesting take on that.
So did you vote?
Me?
Yes.
I did vote.
All right, cool. I don't need to know who you voted for.
Yeah, well, I did. Did you?
I was registered, and I was working the day of the election, and just some stuff came up, and I missed the deadline.
That's okay.
So I did not, sadly.
Did you vote, Joe?
I did, but I
no
did.
surprise.
I did mail in. I did mail in.
Really?
What is the deal with this mic? Really, this is gonna drive me crazy because all I can hear is like, maybe it's this. Anyway, yeah, I did mail in, so because I never know if I was gonna, like in the past years I'd be traveling for work.
Smart.
This one was kind of important enough that like even work was like, yeah, you can, everybody should be staying home and voting and stuff like that. It was really kind of weird, but
that is weird.
Yeah, but I mean, I and especially with the ones that aren't presidential, I'm on the mail in, and once you get on once, they just constantly will send you the mail mail-in ballot, which is nice, right? You just fill it out, mail it back, and boom, your vote's counted. In Pennsylvania, it's pretty good about it because you get the super secret like envelope with the seal, but as soon as you mail it back, as soon as they get it, they send you an email acknowledging that they received your ballot, right? So you at least have some sort of an audit trail that it didn't just get lost in the mail or someone firebombed it or some stupid shit, right? So that's kind of nice. But yeah, so I did it that way. Eda and Noah went over to the local place here and just voted. So we kind of split our votes. Two went to do it in person, and I did it by mail. But mail's fine. I mean, it works. I don't encourage it, but
yeah,
it's easy.
Yeah, it was.
And you avoid those problems, right? So.
For sure.
Not calling you out or anything, but no. That was my first time. It was my first time going in person to see. Well, just first time going in general. So it was just like unique experience, just because I didn't know. I guess I was just not expecting it to be like. I was just expecting one person along the way to kind of know who you were going to vote for. Like even the person that took it. Like she made sure not to look at it, and they didn't know. Secret, it's very secretive across the board. Because I was like, well, it has to be entered into the computer. So as I'm handing it to the girl, she didn't even take it out of the folder. She just kind of boom, boom, and they kind of have the system down to you know what I mean, to the T of what's exactly going on. But I did see. Well, I guess kind of backtracking from there. So Trump obviously won and then elected a bunch of people to be in his cabinet, right? One of them being Elon Musk, which kind of caused everything.
Nope, he's not an official cabinet member.
He's not a cabinet member?
No, it's an outside government agency, or it's kind of kludgy, but it's not an official. He's not working for an official government entity.
But RFK is with
as
in the cabinet.
Yes, he's heading up Health and Human Services.
Got you. Okay. So, so Elon and the guy Vivek, right. They're a little bit outside the bubble.
It's like a real thing. I mean, it's definitely a real thing, but it's outside of the government. So it's an outside agency looking at government's waste, and then they'll communicate their findings or recommendations to Trump, who will obviously enact them. Is what the official word is.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. Yeah,
because there's no way that Elon could take a role like that. There's just no way.
Definitely not.
So it was funny you were talking about it. So he's the what is it?
It's Doge.
Yeah, but what is it? The
Department of Government Efficiency.
Right. Correct. So now is he going to do something with the coin?
No. It's Elon. He's Elon. He's right
trolling around. Okay.
Yeah, it's got it's totally independent of it.
But how about the pump then for all of the crypto? I guess because they're thinking that Trump is so pro.
I mean, the Biden administration. You guys probably know better because you do it, right? I don't. The Biden administration's been really antagonistic with regards to crypto, right? Trying to just bust it down, and they even buried what's his name in the backyard, right? So the guy from
FTX,
that was giving them hundreds of millions of dollars, right? They went that far. So Ben Frankman, Sam
Fried.
So they even buried him, right? But so they've been very nasty to crypto, and supposedly Trump's going to be very favorable. So that's the reason for the spike. And the other thing was it was kind of a convergence of a bunch of ETFs coming online. That's the real reason why Bitcoin went up through the roof, is because they launched a bunch of ETFs and a bunch of people dumped money into it and they had to buy. So there was probably a 3-month or a 2-month window where they had a massive. They had to buy regardless of price, just because of the way the ETFs are stacked.
Did it ever break 100?
No,
I think it was at 98 just the other day. So
it's getting crazy, man. So that's where you come into play, right? Well, I want to know. Take us back, I guess, 2019, because you were one of the guys that kind of were very not pioneers, but at least for the area that kind of actually seen some gains and seen it all. So take us way back to, I guess, what was it, 2019, when you were first taking it serious and putting actual cash behind it.
Right. Well, I want to comment
I want to comment
a little bit on the Biden administration and the Trump administration, and it's interesting because the whole idea behind crypto is that there's a lacking of regulatory clarity. It's like, what is the intention of it? What's the use of it? And how can, as a nation, we benefit from it? So it's interesting to see how you have people like Gary Gensler, who was the chairman of the SEC, who has now announced that he's resigning, who was very anti-crypto in certain ways, but also pro-regulation in many ways, which kind of motivated his decision makings and kind of made a lot of people that were pro-crypto mad because it suppressed the price on a lot of their investments. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see the way somebody like Elon is very pro-crypto, obviously, with the Dogecoin and everything, but also the way that the Trump administration will, take on the task of pioneering that as a nation, because it's
incorporating it more with I wouldn't say the people who are not currently involved at the moment, like, because right now the people who are in the know are kind of like the ones that are really pumping it, but I guess like your mom and pop shop who's doing more the day-to-day stuff and just trying to keep the lights on and all that, they're not really as involved, I wouldn't imagine, with crypto at this point. And
it's definitely interesting because a lot of people see crypto as just Bitcoin, and it's like, to a certain extent, it's really financial technology that will allow the banking system currently to transition into something that's more advanced and more streamlined. Yeah. So, like, for example, you deposit a check on Friday, you don't get your funds until Monday. And it's like, at what point are we going to say that technology needs to be more sophisticated, more streamlined, so now my funds are instantly available.
Right.
And this banking system that we have in America is just not modern for the day and age we live in. So a lot of people...
My dad just got on point to put there. My dad, who's not very sophisticated, not so, what do you call it?
Not sophisticated,
technology enhanced, I guess is the word to use. He just started doing the mobile deposits where you take pictures of your checks, and he took one, he was talking about it today. It was actually so funny. Like, we're talking about this, and he's like, well, I'm gonna have to go over to the bank, and I'm gonna have to kill an hour. And he's like, oh wait, I could take a picture of it. Like, it just like clicked in his head. He's like, damn, all this technology saving me an hour to go to the bank. But continue. Sorry about go about what you were about to say.
So you're talking about blockchain and integrating blockchain technologies into
the banking system, because a lot of retail is not gonna put a lot of money and liquidity into the crypto market. It's going to be the commercial banking sector. It's going to be private institutions. It's going to be governments at large. And so when you have people that are in favor of Bitcoin, it's like, okay, for countries like El Salvador, where now their actual government has bought mass amounts of Bitcoin as an investment, like, it's fared well for them. But for the average person, what does that look like on a logistical level? So that's why you have countries over in Europe that are exploring what central bank digital currencies will look like. And it takes on a little bit more of a utilitarian aspect instead of just like a Bitcoin crypto, like, just pump every price through the roof, so like my investment can succeed. So there's kind of two different aspects of the crypto market that are really at play here. It's the people that look at it as purely an investment vehicle, and then you have people that look at it as like financial technology that's going to revolutionize the world that we live in. So it's almost like the fourth industrial revolution that people are calling it.
So,
and did you warn him that if he brings up bored yacht apes, he has to leave? No NFT talk.
Joe, that's funny. So me and Joe were talking a little bit ago just about our everything as a whole, the podcast and everything. And earlier on in the show, when crypto was really pumping, it was very much it was like a cornerstone of the podcast. We would talk about crypto we talk about it all the time. And then 22, 23, and then beginning of the year, this year, it was kind of quiet. I mean, we hardly ever talk even us talking about it to even the market as like a whole, I feel like it was kind of not where it's at again this year. Like, you always see these 4-year cycles about like again, going back to 2019, 2020, where Bitcoin just hit an all-time high, 60,000. Bitcoin 2024 hit an all-time high, breaks $90,000. So it kind of is back on that forefront again. So we were kind of going through a little phase with the NFTs and kind of getting into that. And Joe, you definitely brought up some concerns with it, and now,
sure enough,
it's not to where it once was. You know what I mean? It was like it was this thing, but I feel like crypto.
Seriously, do those things? I mean, I just joked about not bringing it up, but do those things have any value anymore?
No,
I don't know. I don't not to my. I mean,
just weren't they paying like millions of dollars? Was that all like
the blue chip ones are always going to have value? I guess like the Bored Ape, I guess will have something. It's not going to be like.
I think it will have value because of what it is.
Yeah, like you're going to have the Bored Apes and the punks, but not anything else beyond
or
that. Probably.
Because of what it's known as. Like it's that first almost generation of like
one,
these pioneered the NFT scene, but it's like in reality the only thing that has value is things that are going to have tokenized value, such as like if real estate deeds start becoming tokenized and now your real estate deed is an NFT, now it's a tradable asset, because if someone else's real estate deed is tokenized, you can trade. And I think that's what's going to introduce a lot of value to the marketplace, not a picture and a cartoon is just an inflationary asset that people look at as like hype.
Yeah. A friend of the show, Marcus, he's still big into NFTs, I guess more on the music side. So like in order to listen to a lot of his music, you have to buy his music through like crypto, and then you get like his NFT or whatever you want to call it, which is just like being able to stream his music off of it. So that's like
that was the one that kind of made sense. Who's the other guy? The big the guy, he would use it as like a digital key to a society, not a secret. I call it a secret society, but like sort of like
a membership.
Yes, Gary V.
Gary V.
He was using
Gary
it
V's
as
the guy.
sort of a digital key to a membership to.
He would be
gain access to real world.
He would have conventions and host conventions. In order to get into the convention, you actually had to have the V. I think they were called V Friends, which were like his thing to get into it. Again, going back to you, I want to talk about your thing. Give me the timeline here, man.
We do this. We get off on tangents.
So the timeline. So go back to 2019 and talk to me your first introduction, because you have more of a special relationship with altcoin, if you want to call it that.
Right.
So if you want to take the floor on that one, just because I feel like that's like the most interesting part of the crypto space when it comes to these coins, because like you said, people talk Bitcoin, Ethereum. Those are like the two main. Like some people see that, but you were actually able to see gains in the other ones.
Right. So it would have been the summer of 2019 when I just graduated high school, and at that time, cryptocurrencies were just such a niche aspect of like unheard of investment vehicles. Like people really only heard of Bitcoin, and at that point Bitcoin was relatively cheap in today's world. And I remember one night I was scrolling on my Facebook and I followed this pastor that was like an Orthodox guy from down south, but he adhered to a lot of European deeply theological principles, and so I was intrigued by certain intricacies that come with that type of stuff. And he had posted about a project that was recently started over in the UK by a man named Gilbert Verdian, and it was all about interoperability between blockchains. And at that point I was so unaware of what Bitcoin, what crypto, what Ethereum, what any of it was. And at that time the company was valued at like $15 million market cap, like very, very small company. And I watched it grow and kind of paid attention to his Facebook posts, but I wasn't a follower of any of that company's social media, anything really in the crypto space at that point. And then when the end of the year came around, I was still working at a local grocery store, making, $7.50, $8.50 an hour, pushing carts, being a cashier. And I was still following this guy, and I watched the token price go from like it was $3 at one point, and then it was $3.50, and it was $4.50, and it was $5, and then at $6 I was like, I just watched this coin do a 2 times 2. Like maybe I should buy a little bit, just because people, and in crypto there's an index called the Fear and Greed Index that a lot of investors follow, and when the index goes towards greed, that's when a lot of people with large amounts of money in the market tend to start to sell off so they can have exit liquidity. And I was at that point very much so influenced by the green that I was seeing other people experience. And so I ended up waiting until it was like $7.50, and then there was a group chat that the man had created that originally had shared a little bit about this company, and I was like, I need to buy some. How can I buy some? So they talk about like websites that look very underdeveloped, and it looks very like black market fishy when at this point in 2019, when you're buying a cryptocurrency that is not Bitcoin, because it's largely decentralized, everything's unheard of. There's no clarity as to what the tech does, who the tech is for. And so there was an old exchange called IDEX, which is home to a lot of like really shady coins. And so I had put like $600 into it, and little did I know that it was a phishing website. So I wasn't really clicking on the actual exchange, but I was clicking on a scam website that just stored my wallet information, not my actual credit card wallet, but or debit card wallet, but my crypto wallet. And so at that time it was 120 coins. I bought it for like, it was like, I forget, like $600, $700. And so at that point the company was valued at $30 million market cap. And I woke up the next morning, checked the value of it, and I'm like, oh snap, I made some money. Let me go see my crypto wallet. And then I went on there and it was gone, like complete. So my first experience with crypto is getting burned and getting scammed by a phishing website. And so it was like largely deterring, but then I looked at what the company stood for, and it was just largely just really a solid company. And so I was like, all right, let me see if I can stick with this. So I went on the actual website, started buying, and that initial investment of 120 coins last bull run was probably worth north of like $80,000.
Wow.
85,000. And it was just gone. So somebody made off pretty well with it. But so just got introduced to that company and watched it go from $30 million market cap. Now it's at like $1.3 billion market cap. So experienced a lot of growth, but still really, really small comparatively speaking to Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, ADA, a lot of like the normal traditional altcoins that you would see.
Yeah, you were talking about working in the grocery store, and then when you had the wallet, what was it like, the duality of seeing like, thousands of dollars on a virtual wallet go up and then like push it, like, working for $7.50 back in the day?
It was just a hustle. I was like, where else am I going to make this money? I had a GED, high school diploma, whatever you want to call it. I wasn't in college yet. It was still that summer, so I was like, I don't really have a choice but to keep pushing, pun intended.
Got you. Yeah, I mean, because you showed like screenshots at one point, like the most you like seen in there was, I mean, if do you mind if we go into numbers, or would you prefer to stay off it?
So that bull run, it's actually really interesting. There's some larger conversations that you can kind of go to when you talk about crypto and just the pros and the cons of it. But just me personally, I was really struck by this company and largely convicted in my investment with them from pretty much day one. So months go by where it was sub $10, $15, and I was accumulating. And at one point, during the bull run, when everything, there was this mass euphoria, which we will get there in the next 6 months, most likely.
We'll get into that.
In that period of time when there was mass euphoria. My $7,000 investment was, well above $100,000, and it was like 19-year-old, 20-year-old guy at the time of that moment, 20-year-old used to making, $350 a paycheck. I'm like, this is going to $1 million. So I watched it go all the way up and then come all the way down. So it was, it was heartbreaking in one aspect because of the, opportunity that came with, all that money just being vanished in thin air. But yeah, it was crazy. Yeah. Just experiencing the level of ruthlessness that is the free market.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
that's your generation's .com bubble burst, right? It's the same thing because I have a similar experience. I was working. I guess I want to say I took this job in 90. Oh gosh, when was it? 99. And at that time, right, it was stock options was kind of the thing, right? It's not crypto, but it was stock options. And so I remember going to this company and they handed me, I think it was like 5,000 stock options, which basically just means that you've got what could be stock if you stay long enough. Like it has to vest out, right? You have to be there. I think for me, it was 3 years. And it was just, that was, the .com era was crazy. It was the same sort of craziness. Like every day it was like, it would go up $5-6 a share. And I remember within 3 weeks of taking that job, if I could have cashed out those options, it would have paid off this house. It was like a $200,000,
package,
in literally 3 weeks. And by the time I left that company, those options were worthless.
So you just like,
that's insane.
It's just, it wasn't one of those things where I could actually do anything about it in that particular case, right? Because I didn't have the ability to
withdraw it,
to take out or to put in or anything. It was just sort of that. But same experience, right? It was like you sat there on paper and you could just watch. I'm like, holy Christ.
Right.
And sure enough, by the time the whole ride was over, it was all they were totally worthless. Couldn't even
done and gone with. Now, this is non-financial advice, obviously. Just want to preface that.
Yes,
we're not financial advisors.
Blah, blah, blah.
All the above. You have a hunch of the same crypto coin that you were once in, kind of going on a run. And I did take some, there was like 4 notes that I wanted to kind of run by you real quick of why you think, why it might go up again. So the 4 main points that I wrote down were the supply is low compared to everything else. We often talk about XRP having all these circulating supply kind of going around. It's just seems too much for what it is, and the supply of this one coin is kind of low. There's a staking option. A lot of partnerships are forming, and then the market is in a spot where it's at that 4-year mark to go and to project up.
This opens up a shit ton of questions for me.
Good. Good.
So we've obviously discussed this before in the past, but for me, as soon as you get past Bitcoin and Ethereum, all the rest of it's just utter garbage. That's me talking, right?
100%.
Okay. So that's what I'm trying to figure out is, staking or partnerships. It still just becomes a very niche ecosystem play, right? Because when we were screwing around with it, right, I bought Mana because I was like, Decentraland,
yeah.
Right? Because I was like, this is going to be kind of cool, and then you quickly realize that it's a coin, cool. It's an in-game coin,
yeah,
and there's no market for it, right?
Yeah.
And it, sure enough, it crashed down to nothing. But so that's why I'm wondering. If it's not Ethereum or Bitcoin, I'm lost into why we even have a conversation around altcoins because there's nothing there.
Yeah, for sure. Before we talk about that, can you give us your experience with the .com bubble and being around for that? Like, were there companies that
Absolutely.
had IPO'd and then, fell flat on their face, or or could you tell who was going to be that blue chip asset from the jump? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a little bit of it. I mean, with the .com thing, right, it was a land grab, just like I'm imagining it is with the crypto, or it certainly was with the crypto, right, where everything that had a .com had an astronomical value. Most of it was just smoke and mirrors, right? Like Pets.com, I think, is the classic example from that era, right? It was worth like $10 billion and it had absolutely zero sales, right? And sure enough, everybody was pumping money into it and it completely collapsed, right? And so what came out of that whole .com, we all know, right? It's Amazon, and and it's like, that's it, right? There's nobody else. Like, who else came out of it, right? There's a few others, but I mean, generally speaking, there were a lot of run-ups based on an attractive .com name as the value,
right?
And there was nothing behind it, and everybody knew there was nothing behind it, but there was all hype and the expectation that something might happen, and 9.5 times it, nothing happened, right? So
right, yeah, it's definitely interesting, and I feel the same. I share largely the same opinion about the crypto market. You have, and it points at a larger, maybe philosophical argument of the way that humans interact with investments and just things that we can put our money into, because it's like people see an idea of value and they want to just kind of justify why it might become valuable based off of their emotions.
Yep.
And you have that with cryptocurrencies a lot. Like, you have a very for a lack of a better word, asinine generation that does not do due diligence when it comes to investments, let alone
that's a good point.
The crypto market. So, like,
we had this conversation earlier.
The average person, they see low. I can buy 100 coins for $10. It's like, wow, if that coin, goes up, say I buy that, 10 cents a coin, and I buy $100 worth. If it goes to $1, then that's $1,000 that I just made, and wow, that's easy money. But
I mean, that's the whole conversation. Well, I'll let you continue that thought. I just wanted to say, like, going off of that, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to just friends or close people who are looking to invest, and their sole, like, the two sole things are, it's because so-and-so told me to do it, or I looked at their chart and 4 years ago it hit $40 and now I could buy it for $10. So if it goes back to 40, I made 4. So that's like the two main things. But
no one looks at the fundamentals.
Sure. Or the utility for it, rather. But
right.
Continue your thought.
And so when I talk about it, I like to take a few steps back and look at it from a 30,000 foot view. And there's a clear need in our world today for a modernization and a update per se of the banking system and the way that we operate, as far as so much as, or maybe there's not a need, but there's an opportunity and there's a market for things to become digitalized and tokenized and just put on tech. Like, everything is becoming more technologically advanced, and kind of like the .com bubble, it's similar into, like, today's world is very similar in a way, because you have a huge market of I don't even know how you would quantify the dollar value that could be realized by tokenizing every piece of data that we have, whether it's medical records, so that when I go to a doctor's office that is not my primary care provider, I can get my documents instantaneously through the blockchain instead of waiting however long it might take to fax or to mail or whatever, or email or whatever. Whether it's land deeds, whether it's Social Security. Now you have digital IDs on the blockchain. There's so many aspects of opportunity, and some people call it a need, but you have a lot of people that are the powers that be that are kind of moving in that direction. So you're not
looking at it from the perspective of currency, you're looking at it from the perspective of, like, an infrastructure, the underlying technology, and finding the solutions companies that are implementing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think
different conversations.
But I think that so many people are blinded by the conversation of currency that we can't even have that conversation that we're having right now, where I think that we're walking through that fourth industrial revolution of now everything that, like, I forget the phrase that it was, but now essentially like data is money. Like people are paying for data.
I mean, it happens all the time. Look at the election. I mean, how many phone calls and text messages did you guys get about?
Well, we all know what she spent on the election, right? $1.5 billion in like 3 months.
So you're paying for You're paying for data, though. Essentially, is kind of the bottom line there.
Right.
And you're talking about the infrastructure in which that needs to be fixed. So, like one of the backlashes to the specific company that you're referring to was the two major backlashes were that they got off of Twitter because they're like, oh, they're not caring about the community or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll let you take the reign on that because I know your answer for it. And then the second thing was, what was the other backlash that they got? Oh, the problem that they're trying to solve isn't here yet. There's a delay between the problem that they're trying to solve, which is this whole infrastructure problem.
Right.
It's not quite there yet.
Right.
So they have to first figure out that to get to being able to cash out and monetize their product that they're coming out with.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because a lot of it goes back to the way that our generation, David, you and I, our generation operates. And, even, a little bit older of people, the way that they operate too, and the way that they view their investments and different asset classes. Like you have Twitter that is largely person to person and not business to business, and then you have other platforms like LinkedIn where largely business to business dealings going on there. And so you have a company.
We've talked about LinkedIn a fair share on this.
Yeah, you have a company that really just prioritizes their mission and not their relationship with the retail investors. And it's if I'm a company where my mission is to offer services to commercial banking systems, private sectors, why do I care about what somebody on X says about me?
That's exactly why. That's why I knew he was going to say that.
You have plenty of companies, 3M, just one brand alone, upon plenty of others that have left Twitter, whether you agree with it or whether you don't agree with it, whether you agree with Elon's political statements and stance or whether you don't agree with it. The fact of the matter is Twitter is not a business-to-business platform. And so you have a company that is aiming to capture the business-to-business relationships with other businesses, and they're not getting that on Twitter. They didn't post in over 2 years, and people were legit trying to tear apart the investment because they left Twitter.
Yeah, I saw a couple of videos like...
So they're claiming credibility issues just because of a lack of posting?
On Twitter. They're still posting on other platforms.
On
just
LinkedIn.
Twitter, they're not posting anymore.
And
they haven't been.
Yeah, get it.
And they left for a Blue Sky, whatever. It's a social media platform that's really popular in Europe right now. It's a UK based company, so obviously they're going to cater towards their European audience over the US. Dare I say it, like degenerate investors or gamblers that are in the crypto space today. So going back to what you said about just why crypto is even worth the time to even invest into apart from Bitcoin and Ethereum, and it's the overall market cap of crypto is around like $3 trillion, and then I have no clue what the stock market cap is, but of the total market. But you have an extremely immature market, but also extremely young market, similar to the way it was in the dot-com bubble, where there's way more speculation than there is rationalization. And I think it's just a matter of filtering through. This is where our generation of younger people don't do well.
$50 trillion.
$50 trillion. So it's...
That's what it said on Google. I don't know if that's true or not.
So it's much...
Must be true.
Yeah, it must be true. It must be true.
Much larger of a market, more money flowing through it. So yeah, the crypto market's very small, very immature, very young. But also very undervalued right now. So I think that if you have a high risk tolerance, if you're willing to do your own due diligence, it's a very appealing asset.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, me and Joe got to talking yesterday. I don't want to put all of your business out there by any regards, but you were even saying that some of your assets are like primarily tied into two specific things.
Well, me and most people.
Right? You know what I mean? Like that's kind of the the reality.
There's probably a very large percentage of people who don't realize that their entire net worth is probably tied up in Apple and Nvidia.
Understandably so, though.
Yeah, well, I mean,
how you brought up a great point.
Performance is just undeniably incredible.
Yep.
And how would you sell it? Is like the point. It's like you're on a roller coaster.
Well, that's just it. I mean, it's difficult to sell. How do you? It's very difficult. It's human nature, right? It's that greed thing, right? How the hell do you sell something when every other day it's going up, and there doesn't seem to be a floor to it at all, right? So no, I mean that's the challenge, right? But I mean I have a very large percentage of my wealth tied up in two stocks. And it's Ripple, right? Because I've invested in Apple and Nvidia directly, bought stocks. But when you start to look under the covers of all the mutual funds that are in your 401k and all that other stuff, you don't realize that a lot of times those are heavily weighted in those couple of stocks as well, right? You can add Microsoft and Amazon and a couple others into that mix, but generally speaking, it's five horsemen, right, or four horsemen, and if those go bad, the world's probably in a worse place anyway. So it's I don't know,
without a doubt. Yeah, I agree.
It was also interesting too. We also were having the conversation just about like where should, I guess, our generation, and I was like, where should we be storing our money, right? Because if we're like in the market for approaching to buy a house, do we put it in a stock market that can grow? Just be generous and say,
I mean, the rules
10
for that
have
never changed, right? Over the age of since the dawn of time, right? It's diversification, so that you're not all your eggs aren't in one basket, right? That's never a good strategy. I mean, it just isn't. So it just comes down to that, right? And it's your threshold for risk on where you shift one way or the other. It's I mean, it's really kind of stood the test of time, right? But
One thing that I love that Warren Buffett said, he said, concentration builds wealth while diversification keeps wealth. And so just going back to the idea of, I think it really just boils down to risk tolerance. Like, your personal circumstances determine
absolutely
how much risk you're willing to take. And so when I was in 2019, had really nothing, no responsibilities financially, it was easy for me to say, let me go all in on this thing because of my conviction on that. But I think that, with different age groups, with different responsibilities, it becomes very unwise to invest that way unless you are just that, dare I say, blindly convicted by an asset. So you have it's not just crypto though that people are like that. You have people that are so over leveraged in their real estate investments where if a couple people miss rent, now they're like so upside down in their properties that it's like it's like that in every asset class. It's just a matter of what your risk tolerance might be.
Would you consider yourself to have a higher risk tolerance than most? As like, because I mean, your background is like more of like entrepreneurship. You have your cleaning business, and then now, obviously your experience with crypto. Where would you say you kind of fall on the totem pole for all that stuff? If you were to kind of gauge it from a third party, I
would definitely say more risk adverse than the average person. But that's because
you were able to see the rewards before at a young age.
Yeah, and I definitely would say that risk comes with balance. In my positions, I definitely and try not to put too much personal business out there, but attempt to de-risk whenever I can. So take out my initial investment if I believe in something and it's giving me a return on investment. Take out my initial investment and then you just let it ride. If you believe in it that much, then there's no skin in the game left. Yep. And if you believe in something else more, go invest in that.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great point. What would you say your risk tolerance is at, Joe?
Now? Obviously, where I'm at, it's a lot less than it used to be, right?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there are things along your timeline that will heavily influence your
Sway it and move
tolerance for pain, generally speaking, right? Not everyone's the same way, but when you obviously, get married, and then when you buy a house, and then when you have kids, right? Those are three major triggers that probably reduce your risk tolerance 33% each actual action, right?
Yeah, sure.
So, and then you get a mortgage, and you're like, oh shit. Right? So it's just
it depends on your situation.
But there are typically just some triggers that are built into all of us that affect your risk tolerance and stuff like that.
Got you. I wanted to go back to the four things that I was asking.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up.
Before we kind of, you can see how, by the way, the first iteration of the podcast was to talk about generational differences, which
that's the reason. So that was the original
concept,
the podcast, and it never really happened. But.
We do occasionally bring it up, but that's just so you get aware of we get off the rails sometime of the original statement. So going back to those 4 points in your specific one, after hearing everything, what makes this run? You think this is going to be a bull run? You have a couple of indicators thinking at the four things that I mentioned. What are your I don't know. What's your take on, I guess, all of that stuff?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to reference each question individually, and then we can go over each question, pretty briefly. But each cycle in the crypto environment, there's...
The first one's also supply in the market.
Okay. Right. So you have an influx of money going towards Bitcoin. And then once Bitcoin pumps, there's oftentimes a crash after that where a lot of people take their money out of Bitcoin and they put it into Ethereum. And then Ethereum has a influx of money and large amounts of price action towards the upside, and then people take their money out of Ethereum, and as retail investors oftentimes come in with their exit liquidity per se, you have a lot of people that bring their money out of Ethereum into smaller cap coins that are altcoins. And then when other people see, and it's just a cyclical repetition of chasing green candles that they say in the crypto market, where people see green and they go to where the green is. And so the money goes from Bitcoin to Ethereum and then to a lot of mid caps. A lot of times, $50 to $75 billion market cap evaluation, and then they go to the low caps, and then it's the bear market. So that being said, we've seen a large influx of money being invested into Bitcoin, and so that's kind of why we're at MicroStrategy, billions of dollars worth of money put into Bitcoin at a time. You have ETFs. We're now brokerages that would never have even touched crypto. We're now offering Bitcoin investments to people that have no clue what Bitcoin even is. And so it's definitely interesting the direction that we're headed in. But yeah, there's a few there's actually many things that kind of point towards the first stage of the bull run that we're in right now. But just touching on the supply of the coin that I believe in pretty strongly, it's called Quant. QNT is the ticker.
I got to give it to you, man, because a lot of people, Alex put a lot of people on in our common circle very early on, and you rightfully so, it went up from when everyone was kind of investing, and then it went down. So a lot of people, and it crashed, and a lot of people kind of gave you crap on it. You know what I mean? For that.
But I think that's just a general reflection of our generation. People don't do their, I don't press the buy button for you. I don't press the sell button for you. If
they wanted to just keep going up, up.
People just chase green.
Yeah. So you're 18, you're an adult. Your own decisions.
Yeah, and it's like if I'm able to, and there's nothing about me that's better than the next person, but if I'm able to manage my time to where I'm in school and then I have a job until 7:30 at night, and then I'm doing all this research on crypto afterwards, anybody else can. It's a free market. You know what I mean? So it's like a lot of people that got taken advantage of the bear market, me included, I was way more exposed to the downside than a lot of other people.
You're in the thousands of dollars,
of seeing loss, right?
Right, yeah.
Then I think a lot of people just expect a positive market to mean that they're going to earn infinite returns on their money, which just isn't true wherever you put your money.
Yeah.
So that being said, the supply of Quant it was originally in the ICO, which is initial coin offering, was around $45 million. They didn't sell out the ICO, so they only sold around $12.5 million, 12.5 million coins.
Right.
So the whole available supply is 12.5 million coins. There's no more to be unlocked, vested, whatever you want to call it. And there's a burn wallet where some are being burned every now and then, but it's largely because people send it there by mistake. But that being said, the coin has a smaller circulating supply than Bitcoin. It's a very appealing asset as far as supply and demand goes.
Okay.
Because there's no more to be unlocked. The price that it is the price that it will be as long as it's being driven up or down by investments.
Do you have anything on that?
No, I mean, I think I've been pretty clear that once you get past Ethereum,
you start seeing. You start seeing static.
I hear what you're saying, but
right.
I'm like,
without context, then it's just numbers.
Yeah, I mean, it's an alternative, right? So I mean, I guess that's why it's called an altcoin, right? But I mean, why? Why, as an investor, would you stray away from Ethereum or Bitcoin, where you've got easy, it's easy to move that around,
right?
And put it into something like Quant, which does the same thing with a lot more risk, right? In theory,
with more risk, I guess comes more return. So you're looking for that bigger multiplier.
Yeah, but I mean, the challenge is that return there. I mean,
right.
Yeah, right.
That's the whole
conversation.
Everything.
I mean, I'm looking at it obviously as a person who's not deeply into the whole crypto thing, right? So
that's why it's interesting to hear your take on it.
And I'm assuming that the majority of people are, right? I get very lost once you get past Ethereum, right? I don't get it. Like, okay,
I mean, my boss, even, who's a very smart guy, who's been able to build a multi-million-dollar company. We often talk about Bitcoin, just Bitcoin as a thing, and he compares it to the tulip bulbs from back in the day, about how people used to buy tulip bulbs, and
I mean, that's the age-old thing. I mean, again, we're looking at it as a currency, right, and not an underlying technology, which is got value.
Right, exactly. And that's where the whole thing about solving one problem to get to the next problem comes into play, is because we're not at a point where we need that technology, or at least we don't know that we need that technology, I feel like. Is that a fair assumption to say?
I think in some aspects we do need it.
We do need it, but we don't know that we need it.
Right. Well, it's just not realized yet.
Yeah, it's like
different conversations, again, still, right? The underlying technology and implementing that into the world that we know today makes a lot of sense, and that's a different conversation than the currency side of it. And it's the currency side that, I mean, how many currencies do we need, right? I mean, you look at the world. How many currencies are there in the world? And how many of those do we not need, right? At the end of the day, it's really the U.S. dollar, right? And a couple of others.
I'm just thinking about in 2020, 2021, the CEO of Quant was very active in Telegram before it was a large company, and his sentiment towards the crypto market at large is very bitter, because you have a lot of people that they are so financially motivated, they will say anything about your business, do anything in their power that they can to make sure that their investment is or things that your business might do appeals to their emotional side of the investment. So like, they weren't posting enough on Twitter, so people are actively trying to tear apart the business, and it's like, that's it's extremely unprofessional as far as an investor goes, but then it's like, it's also very dumb.
I think that's where that's where we were talking about generations, right? Like, I mean, that's probably where, like, you have the younger crowd who's the 20-something that's kind of trying to tear them apart for that.
Spill off of the what's the GameStop thing? The Pretty Kitty guy or whatever. Is that just sort of an extension of that, right? Because they saw that, hey, this guy just went out and started barking everywhere anybody would listen, and that blew up, and like, so why isn't everybody else doing that same thing?
And I think there's a paradigm shift that needs to happen if you're going to realize the potential upside of the market. Again, just back to the is it a currency, or is it a
technology,
or is it a technology that has a potential
for elsewhere?
Yeah, exactly. And so if we're going to say that there's technological opportunity, then you have to admit that there's things other than Bitcoin and Ethereum. But if we're going to say it's just currencies, I would even argue that it's not going to be Bitcoin and Ethereum, because a company is not going to adopt Bitcoin, as volatile as it is, for their national currency. They need a stable coin. They need something that's pegged to value so that it's a constant, and that's where Tether comes from. Just as they would say, stable coins. Banks will not establish something that's extremely volatile as a method of transaction that's nationally recognized as their coin.
Gotcha.
They're just not going to.
Right, because I mean, 2020, you've seen the $60,000 go down to mid-20s. So it's like, imagine if you're talking on like $1 trillion scale, that just going poof, and plummeting down, and then now all of a sudden you have $90,000 where it just skyrockets, and it's just so, I guess, volatile is the word. It's like such an overpowered word or overused word, but I mean that's just quite honestly the reality of the situation. Right. I guess as far as Bitcoin's concerned.
Well, I mean that happens in the currency markets today. I mean,
like Forex and whatnot, or what?
Yeah, I mean, so you can you can trade Japanese yen, you can trade
foreign exchange,
French francs,
zero-sum
pesos, right? It's the same concept.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And some of those will lose, maybe not, they might not go from 100 to 20 cents or whatever it might, the equivalent is. But
right.
There's definitely fluctuations.
There's fluctuations, of course. I think it's just it's more stable.
The
more dramatic, like, incline and decline, I guess you have within Bitcoin or crypto in general. Which you kind of answered the last part, which was the market is ready part of it. I mean, we've seen that 4-year cycle type deal. I mean, I feel like it's every 4 years. Even like back in like 2016 or 17.
It's not ready.
You don't think it's ready?
No, and I'll tell you why. I mean, so it's very easy to exchange Bitcoin for services or goods. I mean, that's the bottom line, right? And you can do it digitally, and even then, it's incredibly difficult, right? It's even today, you can get Bitcoin unless you're very adept with crypto. It's hard to turn that into something else,
right? So the question would be, define what it's ready for. Market is ready for what?
I guess quant adaptation into the whole thing. I mean, the notes were more so just talking about like that 4-year cycle, just like because when you've seen back, I guess we keep comparing it to 2020. You've seen Bitcoin hit the all-time high of 60,000, which then I guess trickled into everything else. I'm talking more so about that, right? You see the one kind of being the indicator Bitcoin in a lot of the cases be like, oh, this is better than anything. This is better than sliced bread. This is the main thing. And then following years after that, you kind of seen it go to the altcoins. I guess that's more so what I'm talking about. Bitcoin is hitting all-time records, it seems like, every other day. Is this the indicator for the other altcoins, or is this just a strictly Bitcoin pump, which I believe you mentioned a little bit yesterday?
So here's what I'll tell you I don't know is I think that a very large percentage of the movement recently in Bitcoin is because of all these ETFs coming online, right? Now, what I don't know is what those ETFs business model or asset allocation model is, and if it's more diverse than just Bitcoin and Ethereum, then yes, that's a clear signal that there's potential for all these others to start to capture mind share and obviously become more transactional, more
usable,
more
like use case
action around them.
Sure, and that's kind of what I'm talking about.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the ETFs, because all ETFs, like if you buy QQQ, right?
Yeah. The
QQQ model is we buy the top 100 NASDAQ stocks in some sort of allocation percentage mix, right?
Right.
So it's very defined. So if you put $100 in, they basically convert that $100 into whatever that equation is when they buy on the open market.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
So all these ETFs and all these mutual funds have a predefined, basically this is what is happening to your money when you give it to us.
You're trying to say the ETFs that Bitcoin or the ETFs that are going towards crypto, is it 100% Bitcoin, or is it 100? Is it 30%?
Is it
20? 50?
60% of the allocation is we buy Bitcoin and Ethereum, and the other 40% is it's all these alternate coins based on what we think is going to happen. They have guys that are doing all the research in the homework, right? That's one thing. Or is it 60% is going into Bitcoin and Ethereum, and the other 40% is going into companies that are traded on the stock exchange that have blockchain technologies that are going to be implemented into other industries and stuff like that, right? So that's that's what I don't know. I don't know what all of these ETFs are,
Right.
what their focus is. But if they're opening it up to more of the altcoin space, then absolutely your market share
It's getting
capacity
primed.
is
It's-
definitely going to be increasing,
Yeah.
because that's generally how that works, right?
Right.
I have, whatever it is, in my 401k, I have 20 mutual funds. Now it could be I have 18 mutual funds and 2 ETFs that are Bitcoin crypto focused.
Right.
And every month that I get a paycheck, right, a percentage of that goes into that ETF, and they have to go on the open market and buy whatever it is to continue to fulfill their percentage and allocation mix, right? So if that's the case, then I and everybody else who has that ETF is creating opportunity for that market to expand, and that would directly impact those altcoins if that's part of that
Right.
ETF mix. I don't have the answer to that.
That's an incredible point, because I don't think many people are thinking that way of like what the dispersion of the ETF funds look like on a very logistical plain level, because it's like not only where the dispersion is, but are those brokerages and whoever you invest through, like, are they trading actively in the crypto market for you, or is it just like buy and hold positions until you decide to sell, or like what does the dynamic look like there?
It's mixed, right? Some I can only relate it back to mutual funds, right? It's the same concept.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
That's stock related, right? But mutual funds, there's a couple different ways that you can do it. There are a lot of index funds. Just by the word, it's indexing against something. And the one I mentioned is QQQ, because we were just talking about it, right?
Yeah, yesterday.
So there's a thing called the NASDAQ 100, which is just the top 100 stocks of the NASDAQ. And obviously Apple has a much larger percentage of that, if you put $1 billion into the top 100 stocks, right, Apple's going to have a bigger share of that, which is fine, but that just correlates out. So when I, as an investor, put $100 into QQQ, that $100 is basically turning into something that's a representation of that spread, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But they're buying only the top 100 NASDAQ stocks as defined by that index.
But
there's a lot of other mutual funds that basically have, you're basically giving money, and the person on the other end, there's a team, right? There's a team of analysts and consultants. They can make recommendations and buy different stocks at will. So the mix will freely change around. But generally speaking, it's defined by a segment of the market, right? So you buy the Fidelity, nuclear. The nuclear is one I just bought, right? So
Okay.
it's a nuclear fund, and what it does is it's buying stocks that
That's
are very
a smart buy right now,
specific
by
to
the way.
the nuclear energy thing. It could be, and I looked at it, right? Some of it's Exelon for having nuclear plants. It's some companies that are developing microgrid technologies, right? It's the underlying technology. It's not, hey, we're not trading
It's
in
not the
nuclear
pretty
power
stuff.
plants,
Yeah.
right? But we're designing and developing a way that you can use nuclear in a much smaller package, and it's the technology and the patenting around that, and so it's a mix of that. But and that's what I don't know about the ETFs, right?
I mean, because you're asking if it's a buy and hold position or if it's freely traded, and I think you kind of answered that about it just being a team of people who could be kind of just determining what the best,
right? But that's
which even
that's
then
defined in the prospectus of what it is that you're buying when you buy it.
by the ETF.
Yeah, and I would say I would agree that from a technological adoption standpoint, the market's not ready. From a bull market, bear market, pendulum, idea of looking at it.
Right.
I think that there's definitely ways that you can say it is ready, and I think that there's definitely ways that you can say it might not be as ready as people think, because then you have people like MicroStrategy that they bought $5.4 billion worth of Bitcoin, their recent purchase. What happens when the bear market, or what happens when Bitcoin touches 140K and they wipe their whole position out? You know what I mean? The whole market will crash. There will be no rest of the bull run. You know what I mean? Because all that liquidity is being pulled out of the market
by one sole company.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's the dangers of the market becoming more
then
mature.
It's a red candle run.
Yeah,
green candle run.
It's just the way that the market matures as commercial people, as private investors that have a lot of money come in. It takes away a lot of opportunity from smaller investors to see more gains, and that's why I think this bull run will be the last bull run for crypto that you see the gains that you can maybe see, because like last bull run you have quant did it times 400. A lot of cryptos that were very small price wise saw similar gains. Where else would you have invested your money for not even times 400, times 50, which was extremely common during the bull run if you sold in profit.
Now you're not even talking about blue chip coins or altcoins. You're getting into
playing the market.
You're playing the meme coins now, which are like the chill guys and all that different type of stuff, where it's like you could get those for it's just a subcategory to the altcoin.
And I would say it's even more so rare in this market with the chill guys, but in 2021 it was everywhere. Like people were making stupid money everywhere.
Like you could not pick any of the top stocks. Like it would be like trending stocks and be like, this one's at 200%. It's like
essentially
money's getting printed left and right.
Essentially, you could look on the top gainers on any tracking site last bull run. You could pick one that's plus 50%, and then you could ride it out another 400%, and then flip that profit into something else for a good 4 weeks. But a lot of people made money, but a lot of people didn't make any money because it's like you're at that point you're gambling.
Yeah, and it's a timing situation, right?
Right.
Are you lucky enough to have sold it before? Because when we ended up, we used to track.
We had $100
all
each.
of that, right?
Yep.
And it would be like 8 pages of coins. And you would see the numbers when we first started the podcast. It was like plus 100%, plus 300%.
It was like,
and by the time we sort of stopped doing it, which was maybe a year ago, or negative 98%, negative 87%, and that was across all of them.
Yeah, it's the brutality of the bear market.
Yeah. There was just a lot going on. Just like I guess during that time with stocks, the newer stuff.
It was fun. It was fun to watch.
It was fun to watch.
Then it sort of just lost its luster,
and it was like, holy crap, these coins are going down.
Yeah, and I think that there's definitely a pendulum and a balance of like advantages for retail investors and then advantages for commercial investors. As commercial investors and more adoption comes, there's less opportunity for retail investors to make as much money.
So you're thinking this is the last bull market
to it.
What's that?
It also adds stability to
Absolutely. And it adds credibility to the market. Right. So it's again the risk tolerance. Are you willing to take the risk of less credibility, less stability for potentially life-changing money? And if you are under the, if you live by the paradigm of this is definitely an asset class that is to stay, that there is technological opportunity here, then there's 100%, in my opinion, with my risk tolerance and everything, you'd be almost stupid if you're my age and without responsibility to not pursue it as potential investments. Because
you in your belief, you think this is the last true chance to kind of get crazier returns?
Yeah, I agree. I think so.
That's what you're saying.
You look at Project 2030, you look at large macroeconomical agendas from major central banks. They're looking at adopting digital currencies in the next 4 to 5 years. And there's advancements being made. Like Quant is working with the BIS, Bank of International Settlements.
That's what I was going to say. The partnerships was the next top, or the last topic, I guess, on there besides staking. So what are some of the partnerships? I guess you were kind of rattling them off.
Yeah, you have Quant, the CEO on his CV. He's worked with MasterCard, Bank of England, different very large players macroeconomically. And I think that the where we are positioned as a global financial environment is we are primed to move from a traditional banking system to a more advanced banking system. And I think you have the chairman of the BIS talking about programmable money, programmable currency. That's the bank of the banks talking about programmable currency, which would be introduced through central bank digital currencies. So when you have, it's
Well, no, I mean, what he described is definitely happening, but it also, I mean, that literally just triggers a whole nother hour podcast that becomes political.
100%.
In what regard?
Because if everything's a digital transaction, then the government has the ability to basically see everything that you do, everything, right?
Then social credit score gets
introduced, and they can control everything you do.
Which I think.
Well, we were talking about I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
The beautiful thing about blockchain is that with centralization, you can have decentralization too, and I think that it definitely allows for more control and to a extent, I think is very scary for the average person in the future because of the potential downside.
That's the huge thing that is hanging over all of the cryptos that doesn't hang over really the stock market per se is that if governments, not just the U.S., but governments in
as
general,
a whole,
decide to go totally, or just basically say it's our way or the highway, they overnight could kill crypto.
Because now you're using like a digital asset that's created by the banks versus cryptocurrency that's created by an individual.
Well, there's not a fair opportunity to invest from retail.
Now, we were talking about how they currently have the power to seize your assets. We were talking about a couple people. Kanye was one of them.
Well, getting debanked
as a general statement.
Yeah.
So if you're, I guess, relying on this digital banking asset, whatever that might be called, that's going to happen probably more common than it already does
to happen. Sure.
Okay.
Without a doubt. But going back to what I was saying about the BIS, I think that it's really a two-edged sword, because do you invest in it and do you ride the wave and do you make an incredible amount of money, or do you not invest in it? Because I think that regardless of what we invest our money into, we largely don't have a say of the direction that we head in macroeconomically. We just don't. And so you have people like the BIS, the chairman, saying we need programmable currencies. That's a direct partner with Quant's technology. They've been working with the BIS. They've been working with MIT, the Bank of England, different partners on developing they offer a service where you can interoperate between different blockchains, because blockchains are siloed technologies that can't speak with one another. But with Quant, through interoperable technology, now we can seamlessly transact instantaneously through the blockchain network. So it's like Project Agora, which is a BIS project. Just recently, they talked about how they're experimenting with the Federal Reserve of New York, Bank of England, Swiss Central Bank, the Central Bank of Japan, of Korea. There's 7 central banks and I think over 20 private sector banks that are all working towards figuring out how do we create a marketplace of almost like a shared marketplace of private and commercial banking on the blockchain.
So like a Google,
it's gonna work.
A Google Drive for banks, essentially.
Right. Well,
you know what I mean? Like one central spot, and you could just share. They all I guess I'm just trying to wrap my head around what it is.
How do you share across different blockchains though? I mean, you could do real time conversions.
Well, that's the thing. There needs to be a bridge.
It's destructive on one end and creative on the other. And if it's a fixed asset, like you said, Quant has 12.5 billion million coins. If it's crossing into another blockchain, it's destroying Quant coins.
Oh, right. So you're saying, so if there's 12, let's just round it to 12 million coins on Quant, and then you're now siphoning 1 million to a different blockchain, does that now drop to 11 million, and now this one's at 1 million?
Well, no, the way that the treasury's set up, it's basically like a Microsoft or an Adobe. You buy a membership, you buy the services, and the US dollar value of your fee or your expense as a business or an enterprise is directly market bought from the open market and in quant, and so now your membership is whatever amount of tokens will be representative towards the dollar value of your membership. So you're not like I don't have one or two tokens which proves like it. The token is not the activation for the technology. The technology is a service, but the representation of your services is the amount of tokens that are bought through the treasury, and it's the way that the business structure is set up.
So they're acting as okay.
So it's weird because it's not structured like a typical cryptocurrency. It's actually, in my opinion, it's a brilliant way of structuring your business and your treasury, because then it stops that situation from happening. But then you have people that are like, oh well, what happens if they change the code of the treasury and now the business structure doesn't operate as they said it would? And so I don't know the legalities of all that, but it's kind of just you trust that
they don't screw it over.
They're not going to do that.
So I guess going back to you, Joe, about the more on the political side with it, I'm assuming you're not in favor of the banks going to a sole proprietary digital currency, right?
Well, no. I mean, so we talked about debanking, right? And that's a real thing. I mean,
that's a very real thing. We were talking about that.
Whether you believe in, the one side of the fence or the other side of the fence, and most of it's around, I would imagine around, I know it was around marijuana or porn or guns, right? Those were the three main things that were getting you debanked.
Oh,
but nevertheless, right, it's possible, right? I could be in a legit business or transacting what is a legal business, and just because someone doesn't like it, they say you're no longer able to transact. And if it's a sole proprietary digital currency, you are completely effed, right?
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah, now you're dealing with money, because I think, I guess more kind of a similar analogy to that would be when Joe Rogan invited Donald Trump on the podcast. There was, when they posted it, someone, I guess, at Google or whatever kind of suppressed the disbursement of the viewership going out to certain people. So like when you typed it in, it wouldn't pop up. So if someone along the totem pole of, I guess, the banking system, I guess it would be what it was, just kind of found you, whatever you're doing to kind of get a bug up there,
right? And
they could suppress your dollars, I guess, in a certain way.
Your transmissions take 3x longer to go. So I don't want to. Why would I sell to you when I know I can get it instantly from this guy because his score is higher?
Sure.
Right. That's the social score that China's.
It's like a Black Mirror episode almost.
Literally, like I said, we could spend probably another hour just talking about it from a political perspective, right? Which is the other challenging thing around the whole idea of crypto.
Right. And it's interesting because Joe Rogan just brought somebody on his podcast.
Reason, which was fabulous. He talked about that.
That was that podcast.
You were talking about that.
Brilliant, and
he started playing. We were on Discord. He starts playing it into the mic.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a very insightful conversation. No,
I bet
Mark
it was.
Andreessen knows what the hell he's talking about.
Yeah,
and
he was wearing the polo shirt because someone was like, he's always wearing polo. This guy's loyal to one brand.
And the way that he talked about even his peers with no maybe criminal interference that should result in getting debanked because of political views. In this banking system is, in my opinion, really does not look good for the future if we move to even more of a polarized banking system, because now you have and it'll be interesting, I think, to see if the next presidential administration cleans up a little bit of the governmental agencies at play, because he spoke about how a lot of the debanking is ran by different agencies that have influence over different banks.
Yep.
So I think that'll be interesting to see how that goes into play with also the increased polarization of power when it comes to banking.
Yeah, it'll be interesting too. I mean, it was. It's just funny because we could, like Joe said, we could spend a lot of time talking about it. But we were working a job over the past week, kind of just shifting gears a little bit with our manufacturers. I was telling you we were working closely with them. They're both Canadian guys. They're coming from Canada. Drove down. I was getting to talking to them, and it was the day that I guess Trump announced the 25% tariffs on the Canadian border and the Mexico border. And I asked him. I said, "Well, me and the guy were like, well, what do you think about all this that's going on?" And he his words verbatim. This is a guy who's a lead engineer. He develops the stuff that he's sending to the U.S., which is his main client, main market of where all of his stuff's going. I thought it was going to be higher, is what he said, because he's just was expecting a 60% increase, just because he's like, he just, the way he broke it down was, we're going to have to get smarter in the way that we develop the technology. Is like, maybe we build it in Canada, or we get it produced in Canada, send it to a New York headquarters and have them assemble it, and it's like almost like, what would that tariff look like versus if they were to do one versus the other? Just kind of being a little bit more smarter with everything. And he said
there's a reason why every Apple computer says
assembled here.
It says are created in California, whatever it is. There's
a little bit of play on words.
Yeah.
So it was just interesting hearing it, because obviously he's from Canada, so he doesn't really have a say. And he was like, I like Trump because he's fighting for. He said Americans should only worry about America, like, is what he kind of said was. And he said a lot of the people who kind of, I guess, fall more on the Democratic side are worrying about external factors that are happening outside of America, like the Ukrainian stuff and everything of that. So hearing a guy that's from Canada kind of speak that way, I guess, towards our election was just very, I guess.
Well, they have their own problems that are.
So that's what he got into. He said this guy. He said this guy's been in there for 8 years or 9 years. He said
destroying.
He said they're gonna
single-handedly.
He said, I said, well, what do you think about all the people that said they're moving to Canada? He says everyone says that. He said everyone says that, but they never move here.
Yeah. You don't actually want to go.
But no, it was just very.
It's just as bad.
He said it was very just insightful to hear him to kind of talk about that, though, because it's true though.
Like, toast.
It makes you question a lot of it, and it's true. I mean, what he said was absolutely kind of spot on. So I mean,
this is gonna be a record.
What is it?
We're already at 1 hour and 20 minutes.
Cool. I mean, hey, I felt like it was a very insightful conversation.
And look at that Insta360.
It's still going.
It's recording at 8K, 360 degrees, and it is still going.
We didn't even get into.
So GoPro, go kiss my ass.
I was going to say, we didn't even get into any of the entrepreneurial stuff.
Here's the GoPro. No battery in it. It's just thrown on the table because it's garbage.
Not a paid ad.
Not a paid ad for GoPro. Never has been, never will be.
But no, we didn't even get into any of the entrepreneurial stuff. So I don't know if we should cut it there and do another one in the future, or what I don't know.
We can cut it, and this is probably freaking smoking hot, I would imagine.
Like at another date. I don't know. I was really interested. I knew this conversation was going to be heavily crypto and focused. Obviously a lot of political stuff kind of being tied to that. I just didn't know how much it was. The last thing I guess we could wrap on, we don't have to get into the other stuff, but was talking real quickly about what a return of investment for, I guess, going back to Elon dumping like $100 million into the whole like Trump campaign. Was it $100 million or something?
I mean, no one really knows the exact number that he spent.
But talk about a return, because his stock skyrocketed shortly after that, and it almost makes you wonder, like, I wonder how that's going to affect it throughout the 4 years. Like, is Tesla only going sky high, or is it going to kind of remain where it's at, you think?
I don't. It's still a car company, right? Because
I don't know.
I think the Gronk thing is part of X, which is not. It's separate, right? So the problem is with Elon is I think a lot of people look at it from an investment perspective and they sort of blend it all together, and it's like, okay, Tesla is a representation of everything, and it's not.
Well, that's my concern is, like, are you investing into Tesla? Are you getting parts of SpaceX? Are you getting parts of Boring Company? Are you getting any of that? You're just getting Tesla. That's all you're getting.
That's the problem. That it's not Elon's fault, but there's a perception. I have a feeling that people buy that stock thinking they're getting a pice of all the stuff that
as a technology company,
and it's not a proxy for everything he owns, right?
It's a mutual fund.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. So they're looking at it sort of like thinking, oh, okay, I'm going to buy into this. I'm going to get part of Gronk. I'm going to get X.
Everything.
I'm going to get Tesla, the board, and they're not, right? So
Okay.
I mean, if you ask me, I mean, the spike in Tesla was probably overdone. Now, I think that it's really interesting because everybody's freaking out about the fact that Trump's going to kill the $7,500 EV tax credit.
Oh, is that happening? They're getting rid of that?
It's pretty sure it's probably going to happen, right? And it's probably long overdue that it happens. And
agreed.
The funny thing is, all the reporters immediately go to Elon and say, "Are you upset about this?" Because they think in his head he's going to be like, "Yes, because I need that to sell my cars." And the reality is that if they kill that $7,500 tax credit, all of the smaller players are going to get hurt by that because that was a feeder to get people to buy their cars. Tesla's a very mature company. They don't really need it anymore, right? So his cost of development has already been long since taken out of the equation. So he's actually not going to be hurt by the elimination of that $7,500 EV credit.
Let me ask you this, because you bought one. So if in a world where that wasn't there, would you have still bought the car, or was that like one of the big players into doing it? Because
it was a big part of me buying that car. Yes, for sure.
Okay. Would you have bought it without it?
Maybe.
Okay. Well, yeah, I just was curious. I mean, because you're a use case for it, right? You have one downstairs.
I am.
So that's like the perfect person to ask about it.
I think that's a good example of just why maybe a benefit of an elimination of that tax credit would be
lowering the cost
of the car itself, or I think bettering the quality, because I think that you were pushed over the fence by the tax credit, but ultimately as a business it's a bad thing if you're pushed over to the fence by the tax credit, because it's like any consumer that's motivated by a discount, is that really a good consumer?
That's a good point. Obviously I'm a little twisted right now with Tesla, so I have a very hard time thinking clearly about it because the depreciation thing is a serious issue.
It's bad. It's bad.
Don't get them started.
Don't even start. So I mean that.
But it's a good car.
Nobody
overall.
should buy a car as an investment, right?
No.
Nobody. Period. Unless you're one of those ultra rich guys who gets in on you can buy a Ferrari off the showroom floor for the actual list price,
right,
and then flip it 10 minutes later for $100,000 more. More power to you, right? That's a very small, finite selection. But you never ever want to buy a car thinking it's ever even going to be close to an investment. It's not.
It's funny. We were talking about
the depreciation on electrics is insane.
It's wild. Well, it's crazy because the Porsche CEO came out and said that they don't want to.
They're going back on it now, right?
And I think that's just the equilibrium of the market.
Right.
Wait, he wants to stop making EVs, he said?
So all these companies, almost every company across the board is like, by 2030, we're going to be fully electric. Now, every one of them has said, maybe not.
Well, there was also that thing, though, that they were talking about 2035, that there was not going to be any more gas powered. Well, at least what they said
was mandating that. Yeah, that's
not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
Yeah, I just couldn't, because 2035. I mean, realistically, it's only 10 years away. I mean, only 10 years. A lot could change in 10 years.
The fundamental thing is that if the government gives you $7,500 or gives the car manufacturer $7,500, all they're doing is raising the price of that car $7,500 because they know they're going to get it. So as soon as that thing goes away, all the cars that were previously getting that, all of a sudden are going to be $7,500 cheaper. GM did it, right? Like there was a couple of times where Well, I mean, when they lowered it used to be on any EV, right? So if it was a Tesla Plaid that was $150,000, you could still get the $7,500. Then they cut it down to anything over $70,000 or something like that. You
doesn't get
qualify.
Okay.
All of a sudden, all those cars that were above that
just dropped down.
$7,500 cheaper, right? Go figure. So,
which I think is another argument for just a powering of government agencies, because it completely annihilates the free market.
Yes.
Like people, like companies that are influenced, like there should not be that many consumers that are influenced by the decisions of an agency to send out a $7,500 tax credit. That's like completely backwards.
Right. I mean, that was the whole argument.
Right?
That was the whole argument.
It's kind of this. It's the it's the government getting everybody comfortable with the fact that, hey, here's the handouts, and as soon as the handouts go out, people don't know how to. They're all like, if you look at the reaction to the fact that Trump may get rid of that, if you go to any of the EV websites, they're all like, Trump sucks, Trump sucks, Trump sucks.
Yeah.
He's going to get rid of it. I'm like, what is it? What was it doing? Right?
Yeah.
What was it doing?
It also causes a lot of hysteria, I guess is the word too, because I mean, when people look at the going back quickly to the election, one of the key points the Democratic Party had was, we're going to give every first-time homeowner $25,000, and it's you're going to get $25,000 towards a house. They're just going to bump the house pricing up
$25,000.
And not only that, but your mother, your father, your brother, and your sister could not be a homeowner. Like the stipulations behind qualifying.
Okay.
So your immediate family
cannot be homeowners.
Which ruled out everybody.
Yeah. So it's like,
I didn't know that.
But it's insane because like that just shows you like
people see the 25,000.
People do not read. People do not like do due diligence.
Actually, that wouldn't eliminate everybody. What it would have done is it would have instantly favored all the
immigrants,
illegals coming in.
Every immigrant.
Oh, wow, that's crazy.
Anyway,
and then
now we're getting off tangent. Political.
And then my last point would have been the stimulus packages. When people got that, I know I couldn't tell you how many people I knew that got them and spent them as quickly as they got them.
Sure.
Dumb shit, like, bro, people buying $1,000 pair of shoes. This.
Inflation went up.
So that's why, like, you see everything. It's like,
that's why
people like the idea of getting
for a dozen eggs or $10 for a pound of bacon. That's right, because that's exactly.
But so it was just like, in theory, it looks good on paper, but does that actually mean it? So
right,
that's about it. I mean, we've been going for a good. I think it was a a great conversation throughout the board. I love it. Yeah, I think that was an awesome conversation. So I hope everyone listens to it.
Well, the battery's going to die on this. All right, actually, it's cool. Like 20%. But
you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, kudos to Insta360 for going the full distance. I mean, that's pretty awesome.
Sponsor the podcast.
I know. We need to give us some gear. We're in, man. We love it. So
we need quant sponsorship. Man. We need to get some of that 12 million coins, man.
Give us some coins.
Yeah. So what was it? I forget. Episode 76. You said.
I believe so.
So we'll close this one out, and thank you, everyone.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Alex, for stopping by.
This is probably our longest podcast of them all. Great content, and we'll be back again for future conversations.
Hopefully, it made up for the month of gap.
Yeah,
so
it's
we're
the
good.
new norm.
The new norm, but we're back at it. So thank you.
Awesome.
See you.
Later.